It's time for On Point with Julian Phillips.
Well, last night's presidential debate was a whole lot of things. It was bitter, it was confrontational, it was chaotic, it was absolutely crazy. And I think almost all pundits would agree that it was probably the worst presidential debate anybody has ever witnessed. It was just incredible. There may be one network or two that would say that Trump was a hero, but we know who those networks are. But I want to get right into this now because, there's a lot to talk about. I want to bring in Eric Ham, of course, best-selling author and political analyst, and of course is a regular mainstay on the show. Eric, look, listen, what I don't want to get into is who won or lost. The reason why is, debates like anything else, like opinions, they're like other things, everybody has one, and it's speculative. What I want to get into are some of the facts right now, and I want you to talk about that. The first thing I want to talk about is Trump continues to say, and he said this to Biden yesterday evening, that he's had the best economy of any president in the history of this country. Break that down.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a president who we know is prone to hyperbole. Everything that he has done, everything that he's been attached to has been labeled the greatest, the best, the most historic. And so that's something that we have seen even during his days as a real estate developer, during his days hosting a reality television show. And now we see it as president of the United States. In fact, even last night, we heard from the moderator, Chris Wallace, when he wasn't trying to calm President Trump down. We heard him mention that clearly the last 3 years of the Obama administration saw the economy grow even greater than what has taken place during the Trump years. In fact, there's data that we have seen through across the board that details that outlines that. But yes, this president has presided over a great and a very strong economy pre-COVID-19. But again, is it greater than some of the other historic gains that we have seen? Even if you look at taking what took place post-World War II, no. I mean, but the president continues to sell that. But again, this has been the president's calling card. His driving force for re-election is a strong and great economy. And so naturally, the president's going to run on it.
Right. But, his lies get in the way of the facts. And my concern is Joe Biden really didn't attack him well. And Chris Wallace did more in defending the truth than Biden did. Let's move on here. COVID-19, over 200,000 deaths, 7 million infections, 5% of the world's population, and over 20% of the infections. He continues to say that he's doing a great job. Now, when he brought up H1N1 and said, oh, well, H1N1, I'm talking about Joe Biden brought that up and how they had far fewer deaths. Trump's response was, well, yeah, but that wasn't as deadly as COVID-19. Really? Where did you get that information from? And no, right. and Biden didn't challenge him.
Well, I think it was very difficult to have that type of debate. We've seen Joe Biden on the stage one-on-one when he debated Bernie Sanders, when he debated Paul Ryan, and we certainly know that he can go into the weeds because we've seen him do it before. But last night was something just completely different. And I think also, Julian, I know you don't want to talk about winners and losers, but last night, I think overall the American people lost because you're right. We're going through a pandemic that has seen 200,000 people dead. You've got fires raging in the West. You've got storms raging in the East. You've got an economy that has seen hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people out of work. In fact, today, Disney has announced that they are laying off nearly 30,000 people. So there's so much uncertainty. And last night, people were looking for answers. People were looking for a vision. People were looking for a plan as to how these two men, these two candidates would move the country forward, would bring the country out of this despair that we have seen the country address and grapple with for the last 6 months. And quite frankly, many Americans who watched last night looking for answers simply did not get them. And also, again, we have seen this president blow through norms, blow through plans and operations, and we saw that again last night. I think clearly the Commission on Presidential Debates is going to have to look at how they try to keep this thing on track, because again, now we have seen the White House turned upside down. We have seen the political landscape turned upside down. Now we have seen presidential debates completely turned upside down. And so I think, again, the president to just blow through so much, and somebody's got to put the brakes on this and try to bring things back in place.
Well, I'll tell you, Chris Wallace, I know he's taken a lot of flack, but, I don't really know how much more he actually could have done. He's been a pretty good moderator. I mean, people talk about Fox News, but most people know him to be an excellent journalist, and he has been, despite of the network that he works for. So I really don't know how much more he could have done. But let's focus back on also, let's get back to here, healthcare. Donald Trump says, he has a plan. And he was asked about the plan, and he says, I have a plan, and I got rid of whatever he got rid of. He doesn't have a plan, but yet and still, he is able to demonstrably articulate the lies. And Joe Biden, as far as I'm concerned, really couldn't articulate the truth to go after this man with facts. Look, you just go down the dates. And look, I want, since they Joe Biden to win. The point of it is, he was prepped for this. Just go down to the dates and say, on this date, you said this. On this date, on February, whatever, you said it's going to be 2 more weeks. 4 months later, we're going to have a plan and 4 more weeks. It's never come. Come on, man. Bring the fight to this guy. I was looking for him to bring the fight. And I didn't think that he did it. And these are facts. Talk to me about this, Eric Ham.
I think if there was one place where we could look to in this debate last night where this completely went off the rails, it was on this conversation of healthcare. And we saw the moderator, Chris Wallace, pointedly ask the president about this healthcare plan. And he pointed out that the president has said this plan has been forthcoming, but we didn't see it. And so we saw the president get his back up, get very defensive about this. And we saw him lash out at the moderator, lash out at Joe Biden over this issue, because again, what Joe Biden was tapping into was not only how this is impacting COVID, but also how this Supreme Court fight is also going to impact this issue. And you have a president who is, in fact, in the courts right now seeking to abolish the Affordable Care Act, while people are grappling with a pandemic, while 7 million people are infected with this virus, and they're going to need access to this health care. And what we find is not only does the president not have a plan, not only has the president not put forward a plan, but the president is trying to take away the one and only and the last lifeline that Americans have to confront this deadly virus that is impacting the country. And so we saw the president really lash out on these issues. And I think this is where things just really went sideways last night for this debate.
Absolutely. So you have the facts, but the lies get in the way of the facts. I want to talk about one more issue that was touched upon yesterday and deals specifically with our audience, the issue of race. And Chris Wallace came out and says, will you here on this stage tonight in Cleveland, Ohio, denounce white supremacy? And he couldn't. And then he came up with some, cockamamie thing. And he says, well, who? What are you talking about? And Wallace says, the Proud Boys. He says, stand by and stand back. That should be the rallying cry for every person of color in this country to get out there and get this fool out of. Stand by and stand back. How could anybody who is black, support this guy after a statement like that? And case in point, I had somebody who was the president of a very well-known university, college here in New York. Oh, well, he's denounced white supremacy. This is after last night's debate. This is a brother. Okay, I'm not going to mention any names.
Wow.
But how can you stand behind it? He said, well, he's denounced it. I mean, come on, Eric, this is insanity. Insanity.
Yeah, I think what we saw last night was a president. I mean, there are always going to be moments in every single presidential debate that we know will live on post debate. We've seen moments from Reagan debating Carter, Bush debating Gore, uh, Obama debating McCain, and last night, that moment where President Donald Trump really looked stumped on this issue and where he spoke, Cowboys said, stand back and stand by, while people were looking for him to denounce white supremacy. Many saw that, in fact, as a call to arms. That thread alone, I think, will play throughout the rest of this campaign. And that's not going to be a good look for a president who is trying to win those key suburban white women in places like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. And oh, by the way, the president is now deadlocked in Georgia. So what do you think those people in the suburbs of Atlanta are going to be thinking when they hear that comment played over and over and over? So last night, it was a debacle, clearly. But when you have a president who is nationally down by anywhere from 7 to 8 points and then losing in key battleground states, including North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and then you've got Texas, where you've only got a couple of points separating these two candidates, the president could ill afford to make such a colossal error that we saw last night, like he did on white supremacy.
All right, so here's the deal. I want to narrow this down here. Either he is that stupid, or he is as smart as a fox. He's got to know that this strategy is not going to help him gain the votes that he wants. And maybe he's just throwing this out here and just throwing this thing into total chaos here to put question marks in the voters' heads, to keep them from coming to the polls, to discourage people, because his rhetoric does not indicate anybody who really wants to win the hearts and the souls and the minds of people who may be on the fence. It makes no sense to me.
That's actually a very astute observation, because right now we're seeing a president who is behind. And clearly, he just doesn't have that gear that he needs to be able to show, or a more holistic person to be able to draw beyond his base. And so at this point, it appears that what the president is attempting to do is not somehow try to catch up and overtake Joe Biden in these polls, in these battleground states. But what he is attempting to do is simply sow more doubt, more chaos, and somehow use the courts to deliver him something that he cannot win by the people himself.
That's right, because he's already contesting the election by the rhetoric that he's saying here. Listen, here's the deal. There are two more scheduled debates between Joe Biden and President Donald Trump. And some people are suggesting that it doesn't really bode in any way in favor of Biden to continue to debate this guy. I would have to agree. Do you think that there's any chance that, say, Biden will say, look, I'm not going to debate you anymore, or is he locked into this?
Well, we've already heard from the Biden campaign, and they are prepared to move forward with the next two debates. That's something we know already. And of course, we know Kamala Harris is scheduled to debate the Vice President, Mike Pence. So these debates are certainly moving forward. I think what needs to happen now is there needs to be some working of the refs in terms of how do we keep this thing on the rails? Because I think Donald Trump is, we knew Donald Trump was going to be over the top. But of course, no one expected him to be over the top, on crack last night. And I think we're going to only see it get worse. And what this president is attempting to do, when we saw this in 2016, he's attempting to bring Joe Biden in the mud. He's got to bring Joe Biden down. It's like, take, one of those, you play golf, Julian, those sand traps that you have in golf when you're down in that hole and you're trying to get that ball out. Well, you've got Joe Biden and Donald Trump down in that sand trap. One is climbing up. Instead of the other one attempting to climb himself out of the hole, what he's doing is he's trying to pull the other person down there with him. And that's what we saw last night. And I think we're going to continue to see that strategy from Donald Trump, not only throughout the debates, but throughout the next 35 days of this election.
Well, I got to tell you right now, it's still a bad look for us. I don't know if we're a laughing stock around the world, or people are just at this point just depressed and saying we can no longer look to the United States as the leaders of the free world. I'll tell you who's clapping a lot. Putin is clapping, and probably China as well, because they're looking at this, and their whole goal is to, just throw everything in terms of our election process, as well as our democracy, and the chaos. And I think they're succeeding at it. And Trump obviously is helping them out. He is a cheerleader for those dictators over there who would like to see the demise of the United States. I do think, Eric, as we move forward here, I don't know how many people are going to be looking at these next two debates, but I do think the most interesting debate will be between Kamala Harris and Mike Pence. I think that might be an eye-opener. What do you think?
No, I agree. I think there were so many people who tuned in last night, again, looking for answers. We knew there would be a record crowd. I'm waiting to see what the numbers are in terms of the viewership from last night. But I think people who watched last night got nothing from that. And so I think people will tune into the vice presidential debate seeking an alternative. No matter what you think of Mike Pence, we know Mike Pence just doesn't run hot like Donald Trump. So he's not going to bring the bluster. He's not going to, be as bullying and as aggressive as Donald Trump was last night. And so I think people are going to tune in thinking they can get what they did not get from these two candidates last night. They're going to see this vice presidential debate as an alternative to that.
Right. And I also want to hear what the prosecutor has to say. That's Kamala Harris. I think that he's going to present the case very well. At least I hope so. Listen, we've got another week ahead of us. This has been great. We talked about something off camera a couple of weeks ago that was so profound. It was more of a theological bent on this whole thing from the great prophet Samuel. And I'm going to steal that from you a little bit in my monologue because I think it's great, but I want to expand on it. So, Eric, once again, thank you so much. We'll be talking next week, and of course, a lot to look forward to, and we'll take it from there, my friend.
You bet. Thanks, Julian.
I want to talk about something as we close here because I think it's very important. For those of you who don't know, I happen to be a Christian minister as well, a lay minister. And Eric said something last week about this country. And he said this, he says, our Achilles heel is the issue of race. And until this country is willing to deal with the issue of race and tackle it head on, we will always be behind the 8 ball. I want to tie that into a piece of scripture here in the Old Testament. It's the book of 1 Samuel chapter 8. For those of you who don't know, Samuel was one of the great prophets and leaders of Israel before they had a king. But things changed on here. So I just want to read this real quick and want to share this with you. This is chapter 8. He says, when Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as judges for Israel. The name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second son was Abijah, and they served at Beersheba. But his sons did not walk in his ways, in Samuel's ways. They turned aside after dishonest gain and accepted bribes and perverted justice. That's key. So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, Samuel, you are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all other nations have. But when they said, give us a king to lead us, this displeased Samuel. So he prayed to the Lord, and the Lord told him, listen to all the people are saying to you. It is not you, Samuel, they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king, as they have done from the day I brought them out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly and let them know what the king who will reign over them do. Israel was a stiff-necked people. And as God said to Samuel, for 40 years they walked in the desert because of unbelief. They could have gotten to the promised land in less than 40 years. It wasn't that long of a trek. But God had to deal with the stiff-necked Israelites out there in the desert for 40 years. We in this country are a stiff-necked people. We will not confront the issue of race and other things that divide us, no matter what truth we have staring us in the face. We're stiff-necked. Now, I'm not saying Obama was the greatest president in the world. No, I think he was a good president. But he took an economy in shambles from President George W. Bush, with the banking crisis and the Wall Street crisis, and slowly lifted us up where we did have an economy again. But that wasn't good enough for some people. It wasn't quick enough for them. We had the lowest illegal immigration in this country, the lowest rate in 50 years. It wasn't good enough. And I think for some people, having a Black president caught some folk by surprise, and there was a backlash. So they didn't want this. So along comes Trump, telling some people everything they wanted to hear. The Mexicans are coming in here. They're rapists, they're murderers, and all this stuff. You know, talked about immigration, stuff that was far from the truth, talked about the economy. But they wanted a king. So they got one. We have a king. And now, 4 years in, he's talking about what he's going to do. He lies about what he has done. But there's some people that still want a king. And Eric said something that was so key about all of this. Since we are stiff-necked, God just may not be through with us. We've got a pandemic. We got millions of people unemployed. We got over 200,000 people that are dead. We got earthquakes. We got wildfires raging in California. And God just may bring us to our knees until we repent and do the right thing. Now, I'm praying and hoping that we don't have 4 more years of Donald Trump. But we do have a king. We don't have a president. We have a king. We have a dictator. History repeats itself, doesn't it? Let's see what happens to this country over the next 30 some odd days before this election. What other revelations are people going to need to bring them to their knees? What other reports may come out to finally convince people that perhaps this is not the person that we need? Let's forget about policy and everything right now. Just what about morality? Do people care about that anymore? Does it make any difference? Are we the foundation for those things that supposedly made us great? Look, we are not a perfect country. But where is this man taking us? Where is his rhetoric taking us? Where are the lies taking us? We are a stiff-necked people. And I hope that something happens between now and November 3rd that will bring people in this country to their knees. I'll see you next week.